It's today in EVE Online, Thursday, February 6th, 2020. I am Matterall, here with a couple friends. I don't know if they're going to talk, but we have Orion and Richard Gear Roberts. Gear Roberts. Say your name again?
Jero. Just call me Jero.
Jero. All right. Welcome back, buddy. All right. In EVE Online, we'll get to that in just a second. For milestone markers, though, I want to talk about reality. The impeachment trial is over for the American president. He was acquitted except for one person on his team. We'll call it a team. Went with the prosecuting side and said that he did do the stuff he did. Is there any question about that? I don't think so, not reasonably. But they went ahead and did a mostly party line vote to free him up. And then we had the State of the Union. I think that was a day or two ago. That was really contentious, most contentious we've seen in many people's lifetimes. So looking at the United States right now, it's going to get hot. Terrible conflict. Well, whereas EVE Online, besides one area, seems to be kind of cool. Not as much content going on in there. So anyway, that's your real life milestones. We are just past the trial of President Trump. And now EVE Online. Looking at this, there still seems to be, what we're looking at now is a timer board. And as you can see from here, the entries for Tenal are showing up. So W80 I1 TAC, 1QH TAC. Those are all in Tenal. They belong to Ranger Regiment. They are going to be taken down and destroyed, and then any structures in those systems will be destroyed. Those are probably key systems. That's where you put iHubs. Actually, you put iHubs in all systems, but I guess so. This may be just a cleanup effort. They don't expect to. I don't expect there will be a contest for these. There might be a few fights here and there, but at this point, Ranger Regiment, as part of Dead Coalition, is in retreat to Branch and Deklein, and Panda Fam is marching in and taking that space from them. Maybe not holding it, but they're taking it over. What I'll do now is bring up a map. Our latest podcast is out, by the way, Gal Mills' own Aderon Robotics. So check out that one. That was last night. We do, in the middle of the week, we do a low-sec report. That's basically what that is. And then on Sunday, we do a null-sec report. That's kind of how that works as far as talking in stations goes. And then throughout the week, to catch up on these little stories that we want to look at, there's today in EVE Online. But also on our site, we have SOV maps, a number of them. We have Coalition SOV maps, we have Alliance SOV maps, Faction War SOV maps, and we even have Serenity, but we should take that down. Serenity is closed. So looking at Alliance SOV map, well, actually, let's look at Coalition just to get your bearings, right? And we're looking in the north. That's the purple area and the white area. And if we want to focus properly, we want to include the east because that's where the attacks are coming from, the drone region. So you can see the northern pandemics is what they call them. So I guess that's Northern Coalition and Pandemic Horde and Legion. Then you also have Winter Coalition led by Fraternity, and that is in gold. It's a nice color for them, actually. So those, I like that. Northern Pandemics. That's very clever. That's a good name. So together they are assaulting Deadco up here, also in lighter purple. And as you can see, they're starting to break apart up here in Branch. Not in Branch, in Tenal, which is over here. I think the SOV map hasn't caught up. But anyway, the light purple is the Coalition, Dead Coalition. That's their areas. They are in shrinkage mode. And over here on the right is Northern Pandemic, and Winter Coalition, and they're on the march up here in the north. Now let's look at alliance maps because we can see individual alliances. I never did like coalitions. I think alliance should have been the biggest structure. Unfortunately, and to comprehend these wars, these are multiple alliances in one coalition. But alliances really were supposed to be the greatest grouping, and then you're supposed to have corporations, and that's the way it actually used to be. Corporations would hold down a whole region, and then you would have an alliance of 3 or 4 corporations that would hold down a tri-region area. So yeah, so the North is actually, we talked to an FC yesterday, Killer B, after the show ended, and we talked a lot about the North and how it was going, and this campaign has really brought Northern Coalition back to life. A lot of players like me who weren't participating much in the past have fallen out of Northern Coalition, and so that's left a lot of new members of Northern Coalition really doing a great job showing up for fleets. They got a ton of fleets near downtime. That is incredibly important. Maybe that dynamic will change in the future, but in the past, it's been incredibly important to be able to get Australian time zone fighters, because that way you can actually make progress in the dead of night, I call it, because that's 3 a.m. for me. But it's actually the workday for England. Okay, so looking at the map, Ranger Regiment is the peach color, and their territory is now, they're being pushed out of Tenal, even though they still have the TCUs on it, the territorial claim units. It looks like they still own those systems, but those systems are being abandoned at this moment, and they are backing up into Branch, and they will further back up into Deklein. So what you're seeing is, you can't see my mouse, but you're going to go from the very top of the map, Tenal, moving in the direction of the yellow area, which is Branch, and then moving further to the other, where you see darkness inside of Deklein. That's the collapse direction. So we'll see how long that takes. Seems to be going pretty well. Now, you have some interesting developments, though, in that the Goon Swarm and the initiative, and the Imperium are coming up from the south to the north. So this big yellow area here at the bottom left and this red area are on the march up into this purple area where darkness is, and that's where both forces are going to meet and fight. The thing is, we do not know how strong Goon Swarm is right now. They showed incredible strength last summer. It was summer. It was June. They had a campaign in the north, and they basically pushed out all of the Northern Pandemic coalition and just destroyed the place, destroyed all the structures. They were basically abandoned, right? But they were, the show of strength was amazing from the Imperium when they did that. It was glassing of tribute, they called it. The thing was, we don't know if they're as strong as they were before, because it doesn't matter if you have all those Titans, and there was like 1,000 Titans, which is unbelievably difficult to overcome. But they're getting participation headaches probably from being too big. And so now you get the scale of your operation actually weighing against you. And they're not pulling good numbers for fleets to help out Dead Coalition, Darkness specifically. So they decided they were going to make a SIG of it, a special interest group, saying, hey, this is a PvP campaign, come and get it. We're going to have some fights. We'll try some fun things. And they are. And so they've more formalized the defense of Dead Coalition, and we'll see if that actually has any merit. But they're still, from what we've heard, not been able to pull big numbers. And I don't think they've eked out any victories yet. I think they've had like 2 whelps, which is totally fine. But yeah, you have something to say, Ryan?
Well, so yesterday we actually lost the first little Typhoon fight we had with them.
That's right. They had Typhoons, so the Typhoons won?
Yeah, the Typhoons did
that's awesome.
repel us. The E-War was insane. It was really good on their end for that. I have a screenshot I'll share here in a second where I had like I think 15 different tracking disruptors on me at one point. So
What?
my targeting or my hit range on my artillery was like 20 kilometers.
Oh, they were attacking you with electronic warfare.
Oh,
Yeah, and they were probably reducing your range, so you were down to 20K range.
So about 20K in Munins. We just didn't fare very well in that. So the next fight around, we swapped and got into Maelstroms.
Mm-hmm. How did that go?
They had a really good bombing run on us on our initial landing and wiped out, I think, like 15 Maelstroms. Yeah, it was it was pretty ugly. But when we came back, we brought in caps when those bomb runs happened.
Mm-hmm.
When we came back on grid and with help of Horde and whatnot, we cleared them off pretty quickly, and it ended up being between the two fights about even ISK wise.
Yeah. Now we've heard that the northern pandemics are stronger in European time zone, and now they're strong in Australian time zone, but they're not as strong in the U.S. time zone. That's where they hope just not to take losses. They don't expect necessarily to win fights. So this fight was probably in the U.S. time zone, wasn't it?
It was. Yes.
Is that a yes? You kind of.
Yes, it was. It was in time zone. Or
Yeah.
U.S. time zone.
Right. So that's, but that's good because the Typhoons are working, and again, those are fun concepts. We want to see a Typhoon fleet work, and we like electronic warfare. What kind of ships do they have supporting the Typhoon fleet?
They were using Deacons as Logi. There's a few carries around as well, so they had a lot of frigates on grid as well.
Yeah. Kraken Gaming says, we killed about 96 Typhoons with a Ferox fleet recently, though. Oh, okay. But that was probably a few days ago. But back to yesterday's fight, so they had some logistic support by frigates?
Yeah, they were running logistics frigates to support their battleship fleet.
Well, those are good because they're kind of harder to hit, right? Probably harder to clear.
Oh yeah, definitely with especially with large artillery. So you really just hope the DPS through that Logi, because even with frigate Logi, there's reduced returns with how small they are.
That's an interesting strategy. Small, light logistic ships to basically heal the bigger ships. And if you're in a battleship on battleship fight, those battleships are going to have a hard time taking out those little logistic ships. So interesting strategy. What kind of E-War? What was putting the E-War on you?
So they had tracking disruptors. All Typhoons had at least 2 tracking disruptors, maybe even one more on some of them. And then ECM burst scepters were also something I saw around there, but not in mass. It wasn't something that affected me personally in the fight.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you can't knock off the E-War until you cut through the battleships, which is pretty good too. Well, how was it? What were the numbers like?
I'd have to pull out the battle reports. I do believe they were outnumbered between NC, PL, and Horde versus them, but they did bring a sizable battleship fleet. I think earlier in the day they had 105 Jackdaws in their Jackdaw fleet, which was about 130 some odd folks in that earlier that day too.
Oh, good. Well, we look forward to more fights. I like that. The Typhoon fleet did very well for the Imperium. We'll see if it continues to do well. Again, U.S. time zone is where the pandemic or northern pandemics want to not lose fights. So, okay, let me grab that. That's how many tracking disruptors were on you?
Yeah, that was how many. I think it was mostly whoring at one point because that was the first time I got primaried and saved. But that was how many tracking disruptors were on me at one point.
I'll put that up real quick for just some laughs, but we'll count them. So the tracking disruption is heavy coming from these Typhoons. So you had 1, 2, 3, 6, 9. Oh, and 3 more. So like 12 tracking disruptors on you. And it got you down to 20K range.
With even 2, it will reduce you down to anywhere from 20 to 30, depending on which one they're using. But yeah, I was down to 20 kilometers on my Mun, and I think like 30 or 40 on my Maelstrom. When I didn't have 12 or 13 on me.
Yeah. That's hilarious. Well, good job. But that's you primaried probably, right? Because that's a lot.
Oh yeah, I died. They had a bombing run, and when I broadcasted for reps, they immediately primaried me after the bombing run, so there was just no hope of catching me at that point.
That's vicious. Oh, those are frustrating fights.
It was good. I think everyone involved enjoyed it greatly. Smack talk aside from everyone involved, I think everyone, even Goonswarm and us, had a fun brawl.
Yeah. Yeah, what I mean by the Pandemic Horde, Pandemic Legion, Northern Coalition in the U.S. time zone, what I mean by them not wanting to lose any fights is not feed any fights, not lose any embarrassing fights, because that will raise morale among Imperium and Goonswarm and get even more people to want to participate. EVE Online is very big on momentum. If your guys are losing, chances are they won't skip work, skip out on their wife, whatever their thing is to play the game. You're not going to join a losing cause. So less people start showing up, and that's just a cascading effect, right? Less people show up, less chance you have of winning the next time, and then less people show up for the next time. And so it cascades into failure. That's why you have cascade failure as is when different. That means different things to different people in EVE Online. But the point is, momentum, big deal. So in the U.S. time zone, where you're weak, you don't want to lose fights. Yeah, the fail cascade. You don't want to lose fights, and if you're going to fight, you fight in your strong suit, which for NCPL Horde is European time zone. And that happens to be the opposite for the Imperium. Their stronger time zone is U.S. time zone. I believe the initiative is more European than U.S., but there you have it. Okay, so that's what's going on in the north. Let's take a look at our statistics. All right, in the last 24 hours, most violent regions. Yep, the action is still happening up in Venal for 00 space. Providence crawls into the second spot. That's interesting. It's always a wild card, Providence. That's where people will go to nullsec first to kind of test out the water. So you have a lot of people in that area. It's not red, don't shoot NRDS, which means that if you're neutral, if you don't know anybody, you can fly through there and expect some relative safety. But because there's so many people there, it becomes a pirate's hunting ground. So you might get picked off. But if you get picked off, the player characters themselves have formed a police force, and they'll come and try to avenge you. Also, in the third spot is Fountain. That belongs to Initiative right now. And we wonder what's going on in Fountain itself. And then you have Branch again, which returns you back to the north in the number 4 spot. Branch pairs up with Venal nicely. And then you have Tribute, which is also in the north, but that's a different group of conflicts going on there. And in the 6th spot, you have Deklein. And all that makes sense. You have the Northern War going on, which is going to be in the top 5 as far as regions that are where you're seeing a lot of action. And then you have some surprises with Providence sneaking in there, and along with Fountain.
There's a lot going on in Providence. HTP and them are trading capitals every day, anywhere from a few to 10 or 12 between each other.
HTP is Honorable Third Party, and they are hot droppers. They use those guys are really good at what they do, which is to pick off and basically harass and destroy locals. And they have very seasoned players with a lot of big hardware. So Purple Headed too. Are they in that area in Providence? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they work with HTP quite a bit. I think the Rogue Consortium as well.
Okay. So that's probably, are they stirring things up in Providence? But why has it jumped up to, I mean, this is 24 hours, the last day. They got 500 ships destroyed in Providence. That is maybe getting back to normal. Who knows? And Sado, the FC from Test, has been seen around Providence as well. It'd be interesting to figure out where he went to, what he's up to. All right. Empire region. No surprises there. The Forge and the trade hubs on top, and Black Rise following. It's just exactly the same as yesterday. Forge had, just so you get a measure, and as we go through day after day after day, I should read how many ships are destroyed so you can kind of see if it's up or down. But let's start with the Forge at 3,324 ships destroyed in 24 hours. And Lone Trek in the number 2 spot, 1,850. And then you get to Black Rise, Low Sec, Pirate Infested Area, and Faction War, and they have 1,285. Those are the top 3. All right, most violent systems. Deklein 209 GTAC had 138 ships destroyed. That's in the last 3 hours, so there must have been a battle that just happened there. I'm actually going to pop that up because we like to see what's going on. I'll take this system name. That's 20. Go to ZKill. Actually, there was a shortcut there. We'll put that system in the search, and it'll pop up. Everything is being destroyed in that Deklein system. And we can look that Test is engaging the Initiative and Siberian Squad. Siberian Squad is part of Dead Coalition. So it looks like Test is in there getting a fight in just the last few. It looks like everybody here has been potted, so we'll go to see what their ships are. Well, are they attacking in just pods? Because there's a lot of pods that just got... Oh, okay, Hurricane Fleet. That makes sense. Hurricanes are expendable battle cruisers. They have a lot of firepower, but they usually get chewed up pretty fast. So Test, Hurricane Fleet gets chewed up in a Deklein by the Initiative. We can see here what that looks like if we hit related destruction. Let's have a quick look at that fight. Yep, it was Test going up against Siberian Squad Range Regiment. I can't see the percentages, but it looks like this. Yeah, it looks like Dead Coalition. And it's Pro God Legend that led that. You can see he's the monitor here. That's an FC ship. So that's Pro God Legend. And you have Pike from Havoc. Pike from Havoc is actually Manfred Sidious. So Pro God and Manny taking battlecruiser fleet, taking it to Dead Coalition. And in
looking fight by the look of it too.
What's that?
It was an ugly looking fight. It looks like they got caught out somehow or another because they lost. Looks like almost 11 bill in Darkness and Guardians of the Galaxy. Maybe lost maybe a half a bill.
Yeah,
in that one engagement.
This is a full-on Dead Coalition victory against Test. And you have 2 very seasoned FCs there in subcapitals with Manny and Pro God, so there might be a little story there. 100. Well, they were outnumbered too. Pretty much, they took a fight that they had half the numbers in. 135 from Test, and about 270 from Dead Coalition. So that was an uphill climb to begin with. Kudos for taking that fight. We'll have to see what that was. And on the Dead Coalition side, they were fighting with the Basilisks, were logistics cruisers that were repairing. Also, it looks like some Hurricanes. Hurricanes, Eagles, so AHACs. And Munins, it looks like. Yep, Munins. That's a smaller, faster fleet. Wow, that's a good collision. All right, cool. Well, good job. Good job, Dead Coalition, taking out Test up there. Be interesting to see what actually happened. I closed my... Get back to Dotland. I accidentally closed my window, opening it back up, going to the most violent systems. That was neat. And let's have a look here at what else is good. Nothing else compares. Everything else 30-40 small gang stuff. But just to most violent systems right now are in Venal and Tribute and Catch. More in Venal, Pure Blind, and then a couple in Stain to round out the top 10. Tino. So all the usual suspects for right now. Again, the North and some of the systems that are just always on there.
Well,
like
what's
catch.
great is if you look in Innsmother area, once again, XIX and Co. have taken over that area, and once again, Triumvirate is also poking them there as well. So you'll see some decent fights out of there every once in a while.
Triumvirate's back. They're a group that kind of comes and goes depending on their leadership's real life schedule. So it'd be interesting to see if they come back and how long it takes them to reconstitute into a viable and lethal force. What was that? Immensia? That's a catch. No, that's
Innsmother.
Oh, Innsmother. Sorry. Yeah, we're looking at it here. That is like we call that the southeast. That's like Wicked Creek. Let's actually go to the universe map. So when you're talking about the south, it's vast, right? But so if you're talking about southwest, you're talking about Delve, Period Basis, and Aquarius, and those kind of go together. And then you have Stain, which is an NPC area. Stain can't be conquered, so it's always neutral territory, and it kind of divides the southwest from the south proper, which would be like Peregrine Soul, Esoteria, Fatabolus, Impasse, Catch, Omist, Tenerifus, and Immensia. And of course Providence, but Providence is a little bit of a special case. It's left alone as kind of like happy hunting grounds. So it's not usually taken for its sovereignty. It's left to Amarian holders in the form of CVA and friends. They're called Provi block. But over here on the south, those are kind of like the core south areas. Catch, Immensia, Tenerifus, Impasse. Historically was like AAA space. It was kind of like Russian space. And then you have another NPC area, Curse, that kind of cuts between the proper south and the southeast. And Curse is equivalent to Stain. It can't be conquered. And then if you get past Curse, you head into Scalding Pass and Wicked Creek and Deterid and Innsmother. And that's what we were just talking about, Innsmother. And that's pretty deep space in the southeast, we call that. And it ends at Cache. Cache is probably the last southeastern area, because after Cache, you go into the drone regions up north. So the nice thing about the southeast, it's kind of where a lot of groups will go to get established, especially Scalding Pass and Wicked Creek. So they have Curse that borders them, so that's neutral territory, and you also have Great Wildlands that is also neutral territory. So they're one half of their space is surrounded by neutral territory that cannot be conquered. So you always have neutral people going there to kind of try their luck, and in nullsec to see do they like this kind of gameplay. So if you're a new player and you kind of want to get involved in nullsec and you don't know anybody and you're just trying to get involved, Providence is one area you can go that is deep space, 0.0 security, and you can, knock around there for a while. Or you can go to the Great Wildlands or Curse and dip into sovereign space of Scalding Pass and Wicked Creek. And if you happen to knock out somebody, then you might actually end up taking up a little bit of territory there. So Scalding Pass and Wicked Creek are known for startup alliances and corporations coming in and taking sovereignty, or alliances. That's where a lot of new groups will try their luck at nullsec. And that's where some groups will go to recover, like Test after it was destroyed in Catch, after it was part of the Hero Coalition, collapsed into Scalding Pass and Wicked Creek because there was because Test was hurting, right? They were in a really bad shape. Almost destroyed, really. And they were, though, strong enough to compete with all these newcomers and little groups that were in Wicked Creek and Scalding Pass. So that's why they would go to recover there instead of going to recover in the usual faction warfare area, lowsec. So that's what's going on there. And Innsmother is deeper space, so it doesn't have quite the same exposure for new players or newer groups in nullsec. So Deterid and Innsmother are they have this really interesting stigma, I think. I don't know if that's the right word for it. Interesting allure about them. They're kind of left alone. It's a good place to get even more established. And you're not prone to attacks as easily as Scalding Pass and Wicked Creek. So we'll see. And if Triumvirate's around and they're attacking Insmother, it could be interesting to see what goes on there.
Yeah, it's easy for them though, since Insmother borders Ethereum Reach as well, which is where Triumvirate's home is right now. So it's just easy for them to pop a couple systems over, and they're in Insmother.
Yeah, that long connection, that long jump there. Let's see if we could find it. The cool thing about Ethereum Reach is it's right on the border of the Forge, so you can get equipped really well. You can also jump right into Great Wildlands and hunt around there if you want. But over here is Mailpass, Molden Heath, Cavella Expanse. Where is that one jump? Here it is, down here. GTAC Q. And Triumvirate's sitting right outside that gate here at ZZ5X TAC. That system that we're looking at the bottom left of the screen. And so that system is 2 jumps out of Insmother. So literally 3-4 jumps and you're into a whole different region, and you're into a whole different area of the game. You move from the east to the southeast. It's a massive long jump.
Yeah, you have to bring your capitals, gate your capitals in there more often than not. So also for new players, if you do traverse Ethereum Reach, ZZ5 is probably the longest camped area, more so like it's notorious. It's as notorious as Simple Farmers in catch. If you're in Euro time zone going through there, they will catch you. They catch a lot of Cloaky T3s. I think they clear anywhere from 1 bill to 5 bill a day in there, just by stuff passing through.
Yeah. And the reason that you might have that is you're coming from Insmother here. You're going to want to go through this gate, GTAC-Q to ZZ5X, because it leads you to the Forge, to Pala. That's the first system in the Forge, and you're really only like 7 jumps away. So on paper, it's a shortcut to the biggest market in EVE Online from deep space. So of course that's going to be camped, because if you're moving supplies up and down that route, you're prone to being attacked. And in nullsec, they can put up bubbles and just essentially capture your freighters. Or you wouldn't run a freighter through here, but blockade runners, everything else would get captured. I don't know if a blockade runner would get captured. Are they? They're not null immune, are they? They are.
They're not, but you will get caught coming through here. If you look at the Z-kill link for the system, you can see that they catch Insta-warp interceptors, all this other stuff.
So where's the gate? In ZZ or in GTAC?
In ZZ5. When you cross into ZZ5, that's where they normally get you.
Let's have a look at that.
They have eyeballs in either edges of the system right through there. Your best way to avoid it is hit that northern pipe in Ethereum Reach. So if you're going to avoid it from LXQ, to go 8KE and just go around that way from. It's longer, but that's how you avoid that group.
Yeah, it beats certain death.
I mean, they've been doing it since I've been playing, so it's been 5-6 years more.
Yeah, this is the system ZZ5. Looks like they're just capturing all kinds of small things. I guess most people know not to run industrials through there, packing equipment and stuff. So it looks like a lot of small stuff gets killed there.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. Like they'll kill the 3 or 4 bill DED runners that run through there all the time.
Oh, interesting. All right, so that's an interesting system, ZZ5 in Ethereum Reach on the border of Insmother. Watch out for that spot.
I know so much about the area because that was my very first null area I lived.
I don't think I've passed through Insmother, and I've never lived in Ethereum. I've passed through it, but never. I might have been there on deployment once or twice, but these are regions that I've never lived in. And when you live in an area, it changes your perception of it. You start to figure out the shortcuts, just the kind of thing that I could never know that my friend Orion here just told me about. When you're a local, you understand those things, but if you're only there on deployment, you're probably not experiencing all the facets of the region, so it's a different view of it. That's why I think as players get more and more experience, and they live in different areas, I think it makes a big difference on your perception of the EVE Online map and where you want to settle and where you want to avoid and those sorts of things. Just had to sign on. Okay, so just looking at stuff. Let's go back. Boy, I need some tab. I need some tab discipline here. I'm popping all over the place. Okay, going back to let's go back to the front page. What are most violent systems? All right, let's look at most violent systems in 00. And I'll just read PF TAC and Venal, 870 ships destroyed. And then in Deklein, we just talked about this, the 209G, 280 ships destroyed, mostly test battle cruisers, have been destroyed in a fight where they pretty much got just completely annihilated by dead coalition. So that's the biggest fight one of the biggest fights in the last 24 hours. And then here is where the number 4 spot is Shintat from Providence. It's Shintat system in Providence. And this is probably where the fight is that we were looking at. So we'll open that up in a new tab. And I get to see Killboard open. And I'll get that up and we can just have a look at that and see what was going on there. Here we go. Let's bring it up here.
Yeah, if you look at that pocket there, the Rogue Consortium owns that area. You can see HTP owns some systems in Providence.
Okay, I'll bring that up. So here's the pocket. You can see it's circled. I'll zoom in so you can see it better. Yeah, the system is circled in black. That's where the big fight was. And Providence, I could talk about we'll skip talking about Providence, but yeah, coming in from Kari, from Tashmurkan, you have this pipe here. Everything leads to 9U, which is usually a trade hub in Providence, and usually where a lot of stuff gets... but there's a police force in there, so a lot of stuff will get destroyed on either side. Either they're pirates or passerbyers getting killed by pirates, or pirates getting killed by the authorities in the area. But yeah, up here you have kind of a... I don't know why they fought in Shinta. Let's go look at the nature of that fight. Maybe we can figure out what they were fighting about. Well, it was honorable third party. Going after a miner, probably. Here's the mining ship that was destroyed by the Rogue, destroyed from the Rogue University by HTP, probably. Oh no, dangerous voltage. Well, here's the fight that is registering. Oh, there's a dreadnought in here. Yes, you're right. Purple.
Yeah, Severance lost a Astra House in there yesterday, so I'm imagining that's what it came from.
Yeah, here's another one. Yeah, Purple Warriors. So this is a deliberate fight, and it looks like something big was attacked by Purple Warriors. I'm trying to look at how many dreads they used. These are kind of nice. These are nice fights. All right, Providence. Nice to see you on the board. And let's go on. So low-sec systems. Let's see if there's anything interesting. Yeah, Varancer. Haven't seen them at the top of the list in a while. They're notorious between two trade hubs. Well, former trade hubs, really. But not a lot of activity there now. I don't think in Rancer. I haven't seen Rancer. But you want to beware moving stuff through Rancer. It's notoriously bad for pirates. They will destroy your haulers. But basically Rancer is number 1 with 37 ships destroyed. Kadama, number 2, 39 ships destroyed. Now, the reason it's number 2 with 39 is because more pods were destroyed in Rancer than were in Kadama. So this looks like pirate gate camps, not big fights. That's in the last 3 hours, and that just goes on during the day. But if we look in the last 24 hours, again, Tama tops the list with 324 destroyed in the last 24 hours. And Tama, it's in Citadel, but it feels like that should be Black Rise because that's kind of an area that leads into Black Rise. Then you have Nenamela in Black Rise, Faction War. And Kanaka, another famous system in Black Rise as well. And Onenan, where the old Keepstar was, in Lone Trek. So those numbers respectively are Tama 324 in the last 24 hours, Nenamela 217, Kanaka 167, Onenan 124. Those are all ships destroyed in the last 24 hours. Most violent system in high sec. Well, this is interesting. Hosameto, 115 ships.
I was looking at that. It looks like suicide gankers doing some work in there that day.
Oh, okay. 115 ships destroyed, 12 pods. It makes sense. Normally in high sec, you don't see a lot of pod destruction unless you want that negative security. What do they call that? I'm drawing a blank.
Your sex status?
Yeah, sex status, right. Unless you want a really low sex status, which is a pain, really. You don't destroy pods, you just destroy ships. So 115 ships destroyed, only 10% of those were the pods destroyed too.
This looks like looks like Chinese pub group got together in a bunch of thrashers and shot some PvE ships in high sec.
Oh, that's pretty cool. All right.
Seen a lot of fraternity and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. By the way, a lot of nullsec will gate camp as a group, not solo, or it's not 3 or 4 guys, but like 10, 20. At least we used to. We'd have a battleship group and we'd go to Udama. I wouldn't because I didn't like that kind of stuff, but a lot of NC guys would do it. There'd be like 10, 15 of them, and they would just basically just make some money destroying freighters and taking their goods. Okay, let's move over to 24 hours. And Jita is number 1, of course, 990 ships destroyed in 24 hours. But number 2 is interesting. It's another side. It's Uitra in the Forge. And it has 475 ships destroyed in the last 24 hours. Only 2 pods destroyed, so it's definitely a high sec. I wonder what's going on there. And then third is Hosameto, which we just talked about, and that is 345 in the day. So really that's just happening now, that last 24 hours. I think they're probably active right now in Hosameto, so watch out in that area.
Looks like PvE losses. It looks like dealing with the Trigs, or there's a Garista Starbase control tower on there. There's a lot of, looks like all NPC stuff.
That's 475 ships in a day is a lot for that area. I wonder what's going on.
My guess is new bro groups. It's all Merlins and Griffins and whatnot.
Small ships, small frigates.
Yeah, all frigates for the most part. I don't see anything larger than a frigate in there.
Yeah. All right, most violent systems wormholes. We don't know. They don't give us that stats anymore, I guess. Okay, finally.
Spooky.
Yeah, finally people were using that information to figure out where to go hunting, so they cut all that information out. Most active systems for NPCs. Right now, the most active systems are in Cobalt Edge, Oasa, Cobalt Edge, Oasa, 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 Oasa. Wow. Actually, the top 10 most active NPC destruction is happening in fraternity space, in basically in Winter Coalition space. That's astonishing.
Yeah, I mean, they've been underneath an iron curtain of just being oppressed for the longest time, and then you give them the drone lands, and it's gonna like, unless something's done to them in some form or another, they're gonna be an extremely powerful group with the amount of with the ability for them to grow out there.
Yeah, that is impressive. And I know that their leader, Naros, does a lot of work to make that possible. He sleeps so little, 3-4 hours a day or whatever, just to make that possible. He's on all the time. So that's amazing. The top 10 spots. I think only one of them is Pandemic Horde, which is an ally, but the top 9 out of 10 spots. That's great. That's in the last 3 hours, but let's look at the 24 hours for most active NPC systems. And pretty much the same. I think the next MER is just going to show that Winter Coalition is in high gear for NPC farming, for ratting, basically. I mean, look at those numbers. First of all, the top 10 this time are all Winter Coalition space. I think, who owns Cobalt Edge?
The systems that are listed are VVV.
Okay, so VVV and wow. Both groups, Fraternity or Winter Coalition, is generally Chinese, and Triple V, we'll call them, is also Chinese. So these Chinese players are unbelievably active farming. Now, I don't know how those numbers compare to a strong Delve showing, but we'd have to compare historical data to see if they're actually as active as Delve was. The Delve, again, is on the home of the Imperium, and the Imperium is very quiet these days, very quiet, and maybe we'll see a bit more of them in the north with some war and stuff. So we'll see.
If you see at the bottom there, GOGG isn't to be outdone. They still 119 in branch. They're riding fairly heavily in.
If you had any doubt that the Chinese are going to become a devastatingly strong force in EVE Online on the Tranquility server, you should wipe those away now, because they are doing all the right things in order to become massive power players in this world, just like they are in real life. They are starting to dominate some really key indicators in EVE Online. Fascinating. Okay. Let's go over to... Thanks, dude. It really helps if you look things up and try to interpret them, because you're so experienced, you would actually be able to read the signs, and it helps me a lot to not have to go and look. So I appreciate that. All right, let's... Oh yeah, we have one more thing to do there, and that's the corporate moves. Let's look at the corporate moves. What's going on there? Well, first, the top SOV changes. Retribution, that's up north. That was from last week. So this is a 7-day. So that hasn't changed much. We reported all this before. So you can just check that out for yourself, or listen to a pack episode for interpretation on some of those SOV changes. We'll have to take that slower. And Alliance movements in the last 7 days as well. We had some big things happen. Listen to yesterday's episode on Silent Company, and Konoko, that just became Outer Hell, which is a group associated, we think, with Inner Hell, maybe actually Inner Hell. So that group changed names, and they moved people out into a different thing, into a different group. That group is now called Outer Hell, I think. But Pandemic Horde has actually just purged some people, so they lost 1,000 inactive members. You might see that number increase a little bit, but probably not by much, as they kind of clean up inactive players. And Russian Academy picked up 200 pilots. Worthless Crabs, I've heard that name before. They lost 200, and Warped Intentions also lost 160. Both those are familiar to me. Worthless Crabs, they're I think a renting group. Not sure. All right. I did want to talk about Silent Company because what happened in Silent Company, I think we found out yesterday, was that Silent Company lost a bunch of members, and we were worried, like, what's happened to them? And if we look at their situation, they were at nearly 12,000 players, and then they jettisoned all the corporations out. They just tossed them out. So we were wondering if there was some kind of a power play there or whatever. Now, what we know about the Silent Company is an alliance, loosely affiliated corporations that can just kind of sit in there and work together or not work together. It's really kind of a holding alliance. It doesn't have agendas necessarily. So the biggest group is a group that recruits heavily in high-sec, recruits new players heavily. It's called the Strategic Exploration and Development Corporation. Now, this whole alliance doesn't have any structures, so they should be immune to Wardecks. But what happened, we were told, was that they were Wardecked, and I'll explain how that was possible since they hold no structures. And what they need to do at that point is protect the corporation, so they put all the corporations out or let them quit the alliance so that they didn't have to put up with being destroyed in high-sec and not protected by the police there. So that you know, if somebody declares war on you, they have a license to shoot you and destroy you in Empire space. Without that license, anybody that shoots you would be instantly destroyed. They might kill you anyway, but they would be instantly destroyed for certain. So the Wardeck makes them not have to deal with that hassle, and it means that it's open season on your corporation from whoever Wardecked you. So the question is, how did Silent Company get Wardecked if they owned no structures? And here's how it happened. And I don't know why it happened to them, because we did say, hey, look at this big group. How did we miss this group? And then a few days later, they got Wardecked. So I sure hope that Talking in Stations didn't have anything to do with exposing them to people that would want to do this sort of thing. But in case that... was that?
The greater TIS initiative to crush all high-sec groups.
Yeah. Well, there is security by obscurity, right? You just get by not being noticed. But as soon as somebody shines a flashlight in your direction, it's like, hey, look at that. Let's kill it.
And that's when I had my core out in high-sec. That's what we hoped we didn't get noticed. We try to avoid losses as much as we can, just try to keep out of the way.
Yep. Live in somebody else's shadows and you might be all right. And that's kind of how it works. But we did shine a light on them because they were such a huge alliance, and it's interesting to see that sort of thing. Now, we've also heard the mixed reviews on Silent Company in that there's some kind of like scamming going on, and we'll need to investigate that more before we can talk about any of that. But what we do know is, and this is interesting, you can if you join a corporation as a spy and you put up a POCO, which is a player-owned...
It's not best to publicize sort of, not exploit, but something like that.
Why? Because it's totally legal in the game. It's not an exploit.
Yeah,
it's also
but it's
a leader responsibility
very dirty
to make sure they audit people and not just suck in everyone. I mean, that's on them. That's what I worry about these incredibly large high-sec groups that grow like this. They're more detrimental than they are helpful in a lot of cases.
So we're talking to my friend Dazzling Spot. That's who came in and said it's not a good idea to tell people like how they did it. But I think it's not even it's not any kind of an exploit or anything. It's really just the way the mechanics work. And I think that exposing this mechanic as faulty for the purpose that they needed it might be a good thing to do.
Awareness is a big thing. Unfortunately, sadly, these guys may not even see this episode of this information, but if they're smart and they're looking for this information, they should be able to find it, and that'll help them by exposing it, like you said, Manuel.
Yeah. So let's maybe skip to the solution rather than talk about the way they do it. But what is the solution to the tactic that's used to get a group that doesn't have any structures Wardecked? How does one protect themselves against it?
Isn't that the crux of the issue? There is no, apart from 100% trusting every member that ever joins a corporation, there's no restriction because they can do it without any access rights, and you can't find out.
Well, I think if you plant a structure, at any time you plant a structure, there should be a message to leadership saying that this structure was planted or anchored by this person. Like that would...
That's the missing link.
Yeah, that should be something that CCP puts into the game, because leadership needs to know if any of their corporation or alliance has put down a structure. I would think that's a minimum that should happen.
I know there is for Citadels. I thought there was something for Pocos. I know you get notifications when they're transferred and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of this pseudo exploit, the only thing you know is you will receive a notification saying your corp is now available for Wardex.
And that's too late. And there's nothing you can do about it. Now you're up for grabs. And not only that, but if that's the only notification you get, you can't figure out who put it down. So you need to be able to isolate the person and remove them. And then, but I don't know. I think that CCP needs to do something about this. It seems like it's goes completely against what they're trying to do with Wardeck mechanics. So actually, I will write CCP's community team and see if they're aware of this. And if they say it is, or a game master might be the better person to reach out to. If they say it is working as intended, then CCP has not served the community well by putting up a flawed Wardecking protection system that they were trying to do. They're trying to balance out the ability of people to Wardeck, which is cool, with the ability of people to play this game without being harassed out of it. And this is just a loophole in that plan. So we'll need to put it to their attention to see if they thought of it. And I hope they don't just embrace it as part of the game, because that would be kind of working against where we thought they were working towards.
Yeah, if there's no notification of that structure being anchored, then yes, I'm fully, this needs to be fully persecuted and figured out. If there's a notification at all or restriction you can put in via rights within the corp, then I don't feel it's an exploit at all at that point.
Yeah, also,
that's the problem.
Go ahead.
The rights mess up. There's no reason why a line member should be able to anchor this particular structure.
Right.
Somebody with no right not be able to anchor any structure of any kind that is on a corp scale.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that can get you Wardecked should be able to be controlled. And that just seems to me to be a loophole, and a pretty big one. So we'll try to bring that to their attention, because this is going to, now that we're making it public, it's going to get probably used more and more. Yeah, Eve is real, adapt or die. That is totally the case. However, you need to make the game playable, or people won't play it.
The only way to get whodunit is if you've got lightning fast reactions, and when you get that notification, you check your corp assets and find the asset in space, and then cross-reference your member list of who's in that system where that asset suddenly appeared, and then you've got a chance of figuring out who did it. But if you can't do that, then you missed that 5 minutes before they just jumped, and then a few systems over.
Yeah, that seems very hard to do. You might be offline when it happens. So yeah, I like this answer. This is very interesting. I love this response. But Eve is real, adapt or die. And then I said some things, but then Stormrider Studios says Eve can also adapt. And I love that idea. Eve needs to adapt or die. CCP needs to adapt or die to better video games that know how to protect players that are just trying to learn how to play the game. So it applies to everybody.
This whole problem just seems like an oversight. Like, essentially the structure is just in the wrong group, because every other structure that has these possibilities does require some kind of authorization, whereas this one doesn't. It just seems like it's a little...
Well, and it's also an old structure too. Poco's been around forever, so I can't imagine it may be, like you said, an oversight, just something they didn't think about looking at Poco as causing such an issue.
But on the flip side, I would love to use this against a particular group. Really annoying for a long time.
Yeah. As long as it's legal, you might as well run and do it, right? Well, anyway,
But there's the spam groups like ICANN really need a kick.
yeah. So again, the weapons aren't always, it's not always sheep that are the victims of these. You can turn them around and use them on wolves. So go to it until it gets settled. I do think it goes against the nature of what they were trying to do, though. They need to fix that. They need to fix it, or they need to embrace it as intended. And then the players can make a judgment of whether that's good or not. This is why I also feel like the CSM being nullsec heavy and advocating for what are normally high-sec issues is inadequate. Because if they didn't see this, didn't advise it, I don't know the situation, but I assume they basically didn't dive deep into some of the mechanics of high-sec, or deep enough, or their answer was just completely inadequate. I feel like there's a lot of room for interest in Wardeck mechanics, but the way it's set up now, it's essentially a bribe to authorities to be able to destroy somebody that you want to target, and that just doesn't seem reasonable, even in a fictional way. Like, it doesn't make sense that you could do that and still hold the trust of the people. It doesn't, and I think you could do something completely different, much more imaginative, with Wardecks. Especially in high-sec. And Wardecks shouldn't be something that's a high-sec issue. It should be, War Declaration should be something that is just a mechanic across the board from Empire space all the way into Lawless space and 0-0. I don't know what that is, what that looks like, but...
One of the really nasty parts of this trick is how hard it is to deal with. If I do it, so if I anchor this thing in a random C5 that you have no access to, you cannot remove it and you cannot transfer it without being there in person with a director.
Yep. So they have really strict guidelines on transfer, but they have no guidelines on putting it down. That's an oversight, yeah.
So if you don't, yeah, you're screwed until you can, by some luck, find that particular wormhole where I hid it. So, you know.
Yeah, it's impossible to find. It's impossible to find, I think. And so you can't catch the spy that does it to you. It's completely a loophole. I think they need to be made aware of it. Okay, so that's enough of that. I think we're pretty much... Let's go into the that was our first special topic. So we told you how that happened. We gave you a hint. And we'll talk to CCP. Looking at the videos, again, lots of Russian and... well, this is Spanish, but EVE Online is popular in other parts of the world these days. It looks like Inner Hell, Tori Shepard put up a new video. Might check that out. She was on Talking in Stations not long ago. The voice of bot aspirants. I love bot aspirants. That cracks me up. That's how code refers to people who play AFK. And it's actually not that inaccurate. So I don't love code, but I love that language. Here's Goon Swarms and Typhoons, and they had a great victory today. Was it today?
Yesterday.
Yesterday in them. So this might be video on that. So yeah, that's EVE Online videos. Check some of those out.
Yeah, Ultra Cow puts out some amazing videos. I've been watching him since I think he joined Brave when he first came in, and they're just beautiful videos, and he does really well to capture everything. It looks beautiful.
What's his name? Ultra Cow?
Yeah, Ultra Cow.
That's funny. One guy I really admired when I first started playing EVE, he was so good and so modest. His name was Ultra Moo. And I just thought that was the weirdest name. And then later I discovered that one of the toughest little pirate groups in the game was Moo, right? Weren't they called Moo? Yeah, MOO.
Yeah, they famously blocked off several gates for a long period of time.
Yeah, they're the ones that made CCP have to put in gate guns in low sec because they were so efficient. Moo was MOO, not MU. But yeah, And so Ultra Moo makes sense. And I thought maybe it's a European thing, this Moo meme, from the 2000s. I don't know. So the big news on Reddit here, I don't know if it's true. Sword Dragon paid for 41 faction Fortizars. I just don't know what that means.
That's a meme. It was a bait post to get Sort to post in there, and I believe it worked. If I recall.
He fell for it. Okay, we won't then. Life is dismember. I don't know. Do you guys see anything on here? There's stuff in here we won't touch because it's kind of personal attacks, so we won't. Yeah, just a lot of hassling Sort Dragon, leader of Dead Coalition. We'll leave that there.
It looks like still people having issues from the DDoS attack, having skills and stuff not working.
Yeah, I think we're on the other side of it, but it's not completely good for everybody. So I don't know. Use some of the stuff that we talked about in the last few episodes to help out. Okay, so Ashtaroth's calling for what's going on with. Let's look into that. So I'll just read what Ashtarothi wrote. It has been a too long and too painful road. Thanks for keeping at it so diligently in spite of the community frustrations. I look forward to eventual devblog laying out what the hell happened here. And he's talking about DDoS in the last 9-10 days. And he's responding to Eve's status. And so that's probably what we should focus on. It says here, the situation is improving and we are seeing less unsuccessful logins in the last 24 hours. Chat is also in a better shape. Team continues, I think, investigating while monitoring the health of our services. Please keep the reports coming. This was February 6th at 7 a.m. for me. So that was actually something that was just posted a couple hours ago. So that's where we're at with DDoS. So there you go. Okay, that's all I got. You have anything?
That's all I have for right now. I just Radicos in chat says something about people not liking Sword. I guess it's everyone's personal opinion. Whenever you're facing someone, they tend to be the bad guy, so folks will kind of poke at them. So I could see that. I have my own issues with Sword Dragon, but as far as I know, he's a decent enough person.
Everybody has issues with Sword Dragon. He's got sharp elbows. I mean, he's interesting and stuff, but he's got sharp elbows, and he has a way of making people not like him. But he has a way of opening that door of people not liking him, and I don't know. It's really hard to tell. Why people like or don't like certain people, but I can see very clearly from my own experience and from watching, his antics for years and years and years that he tends to get people really mad at him.
And until it goes too far, I think we need a bit more of not liking folks in the game, because at the moment, we're blocking up and there's not enough animosity to help factionalize.
Oh. Hold your bag of chips steady, because it's overcoming your voice.
I'm trying to clear my desk.
Gotcha.
So mean, Matterall.
I'm sorry. I was listening to I was trying to listen to you. And I know the fans are going to be like, what's he saying? What's he saying? What's he saying? They're going to think I did it. Anyway. All right. Thanks, dude. I think that's we're at the end. I'm looking at Tweet Fleet, not seeing anything else. We'll talk about Sword Dragon, I'm sure, in the days that are coming, because he is definitely under attack.
Great headline for our next podcast. Sword Dragon under fire.
We have a new logo. I'm going to put that out today. So the new logo is starting to go up on everything else. I'm not going to change it after this one. I've experimented with 4 or 5 different new logos. As you can see, if you're watching this, we have a new logo right above me here. Oops. That one I like a lot, but I've got a new one coming that's a lot more simple so that we can make it perfect for small things like a favicon or emojis, and make it decent in other artwork that we build, and also stuff that we animate, because we want to get you some high quality videos coming soon on from Talking in Stations. A lot of the stuff, again, that we're trying to do, because we're always trying to evolve what Talking in Station does and what kind of value it can bring to the fans and the supporters especially. So hopefully we'll get some of that stuff done. Billy asked me the other day, what's happened to the Fleet Academy? I want to give you a quick update on that. And the Fleet Academy was something that had a table. I wanted to get it done between November, December, and have it launch ready for the end of January. But we lost access to some people that were key to that, so we had to put that on the table it. And we still haven't come back to it. I've focused more on media and making sure that we keep the communication open between Talking in Stations and the fans. So I've been on more shows. Behind the scenes, I'm working harder to make sure that we have people that have access to shows and can get on and stuff like that. So you'll see some new faces coming from TIS. You'll also see better... I've done a lot of automating, so you can see a better news flow inside the links channel. We're also going to eliminate a bunch of channels just to make it clear on where to get information and that sort of thing. We think about this all day long, every day, for you guys to be able to benefit from. So we appreciate that you guys are fans. You guys come here and you come to TIS Discord. And then we really appreciate the fans that put some money where their usage is, and they support us on Patreon. We really, really appreciate those guys. And a lot of them are super fans. Anyway, you can find that at patreon.com/Matterall. And until next time. Oh, by the way, we just had Galente. I told you at the beginning of the show, we just had Galente Militia Adron Robotics on the last Talking in Station show, which happened last night. We got that out right away. So that was out last night. We want to do that. We want to keep the podcast coming as quickly as possible. Okay, look for a Pando chat coming out, and we will see you next time. Oh, got a raid. Always forget this last thing. It's a nice thing that we do for other people. We don't have to do it, but we want to keep you guys. And then we'll send him over to Marquis Dragon. He seems to be the only guy up, I think. Oh, is who's on right now? Let's see.
Temmie, a cowboy. I don't know him. He's currently on my recommended channels for EV. Has like 11 viewers right now.
Oh, he's good. We'll dump over to him for sure. I was gonna give you to Marquis Dragon, but we like Temmie Cowboy. He's a good guy. Stay tuned, then we'll transfer you over there. And then you can catch all these shows. If you miss one, you can catch them here, or you can catch them. We send them over to YouTube. Try to get them out 24 hours after they're done. Okay, but yeah. Tamaya is all right with us, so we'll see. Hopefully you go over there and have a good time. And we'll see you tomorrow.